Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 11. So Module 11 is our last poem assignment, and after this point we will do, just like we did for the short stories, we'll do a review and revision type of module, and so you'll get some feedback from your peers, and then we'll move on from there. So that'll be in the next module though. So this module is your last poem assignment, and I think I kind of ordered them in order of difficulty, but you may disagree. It kind of depends on who you are as a writer and what type of experience you've had with poetry. I think that writing a closed form poem is the most difficult because you are really restricted on the type of form that you've chosen and how it looks on the page. So I'll get to that in a minute though. You have one more readings quiz for poetry. This one is over just form in poetry and what it looks like. And so you just have a short section that you'll be reading about, and then you'll take the quiz just like you've done before. We'll give you some examples. It will also include some of the readings that you've done prior to this, so the 9 and 10 modules as well. So you should have done those already. You may want to go back and review them. A lot of the questions are just kind of basic information about poetry that you may already know. So just kind of keep that in mind, but you may want to be a little bit prepared for it. And then the poem assignment itself is to choose a poetry form and then write a poem that matches that form. So these are a bunch of examples here. So you might choose a Shakespearean sonnet. You might choose like a villanelle. There's all kinds of topics that you might use. You might use a concrete poem. So a concrete poem is one that creates a shape. There's a lot of different ideas. There's a lot of different poem form and types. You might want to, if you're having trouble, a lot of times the topic is really dictated by the type of form that you've chosen. So a lot of students will choose a haiku because they're, only 3 lines. Haiku are pretty difficult though, at least to write a good one. And haiku are often about nature, and typically that last line of the haiku, so you go 5 syllables and 7 syllables and 5 syllables. Typically that last line has something kind of twist to it, so something to make the reader think a little bit more rather than just a basic description. So there's a lot that you can do with that. That's why the minimum is 3 lines, because if you do choose to do a haiku, you are only writing 3 lines. However, that's really restricted on syllables, and so that can be a little bit of a challenge. You want to make sure that you count out your syllables. If you remember, do you remember doing that in school? We did ours with our hand on the chin, to see when my son does like snaps or something at school. So anyway, so you know how to count out the syllables. Make sure that you have enough syllables per line. If it has a rhyme scheme, then you want to make sure that you're following that. The main thing is you are not writing free verse, so it has to be restricted, either in the line length, the number of lines per stanza, the rhyming. Something's going to be restricted. And then obviously the topic needs to be appropriate for the form itself, and then you need to please include the type of form that you use. Sometimes I can tell and sometimes I can't, and obviously part of your grade is actually meeting the requirements of the form. So if I don't know which form you used, then I can't really grade it. So make sure that you include that type of form. You can either put it in the title. Sometimes the students will say, villanelle about spring or something, or you can put it like in the header part when you put your name and everything, and put villanelle poem as the assignment. So it's up to you. If you're having trouble with this, there's a bunch of different forms. I think I've showed you this website before. This is the best just resource about poetry in general. Includes so much stuff and so many poems. So if, like, for example, you want to try a specific form of poetry, you search for form and it will have a bunch of different stuff that pops up. Typically it will have just the information about the form itself, maybe some of the history, but basically the rules are what you're looking for. And then if you need to look up any words in order to help you understand the rules, you can do that. But then you can look at the different examples that they provided, so different links to those examples. There's some other poetic forms that'll be pop up. There might be, you can browse through the glossary of poetic terms. So there's a lot that you can do, and there are a ton of different forms of poetry. And so I encourage you to, look for one that you maybe have never heard of, maybe one that you think would be fun to try. And whether it's, short or long, it doesn't really matter. And just keep in mind that you do have to follow those rules. And so some of them are going to be a lot more difficult than others. So some students choose one because they want that challenge. And some students are like, I don't know if I want to do that for something I'm going to be graded on. So I'm going to pick an easy one. I'm going to do a sonnet or something, which is totally fine. So once you have your form chosen and you have written out your poem and making sure that you follow all of the rules of that poem, you can then submit it to the form poem assignment. And then obviously the grading rubric is at the bottom that I'll be using for all of your poems. And so primarily this one's graded on, did you count your syllables before you submit it? So that's an important one to remember. So that is the module. Like I said, this is your last poem assignment. That'll be a new poem that you write. And then after this point, we're moving on to revision and some other stuff to end the class. So if you have any questions, send me an email. Otherwise, have a great week.